everyone, welcome back. Today I got here the Honda Pioneer 1000 and I'm going to be installing the tracks. So let's get to it. With the tracks you'll receive the instructions, the rear anchors, bolts, the front anchors, bolts, new lug nuts, and the steering limiter straps. The first thing I'm going to do is jack up the front end and take off the first wheel. Next, I'm going to prepare my steering limiter straps. As you can see, these pucks here have an arrow on them. This arrow should be pointing into the center of the machine when installed. So this one will be for the left and this one will be for the right. Put a little grease on the collar here before you drop it into place. I recommend installing your steering limiter strap onto the front anchor before you mount it onto the machine. Otherwise, you'll run into the same problem I did, where your socket will not fit onto the bolt going through the hole. The first thing I'm going to do is mount the anchor plate. You can see there's an arrow right here on the plate that points forward. I'll also have to take the bolt off of the track there and drop it through the hole on the anchor plate before I install it. Once you get your bolts in place, go ahead and tighten them up. Here you can see I have my bolts going up from the bottom, the two mounting plates on there, and the bolt to anchor the track on. Now I need to manhandle the track onto the studs and then put the lug nuts on. The easiest way to do this is to use your jack and try and line up the holes before you even lift. Don't forget to torque your lug nuts. The Honda torque spec is 80 foot-pounds. After I torque them, I'll take my paint pen and put a little mark on them so I know it's been done. As you can see, there are 3 holes in the hub for the tracks. You want to mount it on the outside holes. Now I'm going to mount the angle of attack bar with one of these collars on the top and one on the bottom. Now I can install the steering limiter straps by dropping a bolt through the hole right here in the anchor. And putting a nut with a washer on the back side. The steering limiter strap will attach through this hole here later on once we get the tracks set up. Since I didn't install my steering limiter strap earlier, I'm having troubles getting my socket on the bolt going through. To solve this, I had to remove the front bolt on the anchor and loosen up the rear one. And now I can slide a wrench onto the bolt for the steering limiter strap. I'll put the limiter strap on, tighten it up, and then throw the other bolt in the hole and tighten everything back up. Go around and make sure you have all your bolts tight. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, click that bell, and smash that thumbs up. It really goes a long way to helping out the channel. The other front track will be the exact same procedure. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that off camera, and then we'll get started on the rear. Just like the front, I'm gonna jack up the rear end and take the wheel off. Now I'm going to remove this bottom bolt on the rear knuckle. It is a 14 mil bolt and nut. Just like the front, I need to remove this bolt here and attach it to the mounting bracket. Now I can attach the rear anchor with the new bolt provided in the kit. Now we can throw this big track up on the rear studs. Don't forget to torque your lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds. Now, just like the front, I'm going to attach the bar here to this bolt coming down. Make sure you have the big collar on top, small collar in the middle, washer on the bottom, and then tighten up your nut. And just like that, the rear track is installed. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side off camera. And if you haven't done so already, hit that thumbs up, and then we'll get to adjusting. Okay, to adjust the angle of attack on the rear tracks, loosen off this 19 mil here, and then loosen off this 30 mil adjuster nut here. I've put a small gap in between the retainer plate and the rubber. You can see right there, there's just a small gap. Now I'm gonna tighten up this 30 mil until there's light pressure pushing on the rubber against the retainer plate. Once the rubber is pushing light pressure on the retainer plate, go ahead and tighten up the retainer plate bolts. Now, just repeat the same procedure on the other side, and then we'll move on to the front. Okay, now we can adjust the front end. First, make sure your tracks are pointed straight ahead. And then we'll temporarily apply pressure to the front of the track to make sure it is sitting flat on the ground. All right, now we're ready to set the angle of attack on our front tracks. First, loosen up the jam nut here, and then we'll turn our adjuster until the bubble is in the middle of the level. and then retighten the jam nut. Also tighten the 2 bolts on the retainer plate at this time. And there we go. Our bubble is perfectly centered on the level. Once you have adjusted angle of attack on both sides, we can set the steering limiter strap. You want to turn the wheel all the way to the left, and we're going to set the strap on the left side. To set the steering limiter strap, we're going to make sure there's a 1/2 inch between the center of this hole and the center of this hole. And then straighten your track out, and we'll put the bolt in this hole. Go ahead and do the same thing to the other side. Okay, one of the last things we have to do is adjust the toe in. They come about a 1/2 inch toed out. We need to bring that as close as we can to 0. I'm going to take a measurement from the front of the track wheels and from the rear of the track wheels, and then we'll set it to 0. Just in case I wasn't very clear, we need to take a measurement at the front of our front tracks and at the rear of our front tracks and make sure they are exactly the same or as close as can be. Here you can see he has taken a measurement of the front, and here he has taken a measurement of the back. To adjust the toe in, we'll need to loosen up this 19 mil here and then turn the rod. Both your tie rods need to stay at exactly the same length. So whatever you do to one side, do to the other side. I only recommend doing about a 1/2 turn on both sides and then take another measurement. Remember, each side of the machine is opposite. So if you're going up on this side, you'll need to go down on the opposite side. If you find you get all out of whack, simply take your measuring tape and measure from the rubber boot to the nut and make sure both sides are the exact same length. Once you have your toe in zeroed out, make sure you tighten up the jam nuts again. Once you think you're all done, take your machine for a short little ride and then double check the adjustments and make sure all your nuts and bolts are tight. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click up here to check out the next video. This has been my track install on the Honda Pioneer 1000. Ride safe.